Look, I know you guys don't come here for the science, the critical thinking, the space communism. I know you come here for the 10 seconds of my dog, Indy, at the end of each video. And that's fine. I'm willing to work with that. So with that in mind, today's video is all about Indy. Well, it's about dogs in general. I'll throw in some random Indy pics, though, just to keep you interested. There are two dog-centric news stories that caught my eye this week, and they share something in common: humans pushing pseudoscience onto their four-legged companions. So first, I'll talk about the news story that is most important in terms of health and wellness for your dog: grain-free diets. Grain-free dog food is a fad that resembles an older fad amongst humans and their diets, vilifying carbohydrates and or a subset of foods made up primarily of carbohydrates. Whether they're doing Atkins or keto or carnivore or gluten-free, a ton of people think that one of the macronutrients that humans rely upon for survival is bringing them ill health. And some people actually are healthier on one of those diets I mentioned. People with celiac disease will literally die if they eat too much gluten. And children with hard-to-treat epilepsy can find a benefit from a strictly controlled ketogenic diet. Yeah, I guess I have to mention that a number of people do find it easier to eat less and therefore lose weight on a diet that eliminates a huge portion of the foods that they tend to snack on, though whether or not that's sustainable for them long term is more of an individual basis. But for most people, there's just no evidence to suggest that there's any real health benefit to eliminating or nearly eliminating carbs or grains from their diet. People, after all, are omnivores. We evolved to eat all kinds of foods, and our bodies are quite happy with variety. Dogs, of course, evolved with humans for the past 20,000 years or so, often eating our food scraps, and so they are omnivores too. However, their closest living relative is the gray wolf, and wolves are certainly carnivores. So in addition to people fearing carbohydrates these days, they also mistakenly believe that dogs naturally would be healthier if they ate the same way as their wolfy ancestors. And thus, the husky became the hottest dog food bag model on the market as companies rushed to produce grain-free kibble for people to feed their tiny, deformed wolves. On that note, as an aside, I adopted Indy when he was 3 months old, and I was informed at the time that they thought he was a German Shepherd mix, and I was really excited because I wanted a large, tough-looking dog. Anyway, a few years ago, Indy's veterinarian asked me if he ate a grain-free diet, and he didn't. So I asked if he should be eating a grain-free diet, and she said no, because the FDA at that point had released a warning that grain-free dog food might be linked to a potentially deadly heart condition known as dilated cardiomyopathy, or DCM. And there are usually no symptoms of DCM until the dog goes into heart failure, which is absolutely terrifying. So I was glad that I hadn't fallen for the majestic wolf marketing, and I went on feeding Indy his usual cheap as hell kibble. At the time, I had just assumed that there must be something in grains that prevents DCM in dogs, and I didn't think anything more of it, but this week I learned that I was actually wrong. The link that researchers noticed between grain-free dog food and DCM wasn't due to the lack of grains, but to the addition of products that companies put in their food to replace the grains. Dog food manufacturers don't just throw an elk steak into a bag and call it a day. They still want to pad out the more expensive meat byproducts with something. So instead of grains like wheat, corn, or rice, they're going to use other kind of filler ingredients. And researchers suspected that one of those might be to blame for DCM. Sure enough, in 2021, researchers compared the dog food brands that were associated with DCM to a bunch of brands that weren't. And they found that peas, lentils, chickpeas, potatoes, and sweet potatoes kept popping up as likely culprits. This past May, another group of scientists followed up on that by feeding 8 dogs one of 3 diets each month for 3 months. A pea-based diet, a lentil-based diet, or a regular kibble diet. They switched the diets each month and they looked for biomarkers that would point to DCM, which is nice because I guess the other way to do this would be to force feed a bunch of peas and lentils to dogs until their hearts explode. And the researchers found that when the dogs were fed a diet heavy in peas, but not lentils or the regular kibble, their risk of DCM appeared to increase significantly. Now, does that mean peas are going to kill your dog and lentils are safe? No. DCM is also a condition that some dog breeds are at a higher risk for. There's a genetic predisposition for it, particularly large breeds like Great Danes and German Shepherds. So I guess it's a good thing that Indy is certainly not in any way a German Shepherd, because it turns out that the perfectly normal, not grain-free kibble I've been feeding him lists peas as a major ingredient. Whoops. That genetic predisposition in some dogs may mean that even if researchers work out exactly which ingredients in which quantities are causing this problem, some dogs will still suffer from DCM, while others will be perfectly fine regardless of their diet. So I will be switching Indy to a different kibble just to be on the safe side. There's a million options out there. It's not a big deal for me to find one that doesn't have peas. So I'll be doing that, and I'll also be trying to avoid lentils and potatoes and sweet potatoes because might as well be safe, right? Okay, on to the second story that I saw this week, which is that the majority of US dog owners are now skeptical of vaccines, including for rabies, according to a study. Now, when I first saw that headline on the Hill, I thought, absolutely no way are we at this low of a low in our society. Like, surely this must be from a Facebook poll where anti-vaccine kooks are running amok. And so I read this study that's based on, and it's a little better, but also a little worse than I thought. Here's the thing. I might be included in that slight majority thanks to the unnecessary question, which was essentially, are most vaccines that dogs receive medically necessary? I would probably say yes if I was asked in a survey, but here's the thing, some vaccines really are unnecessary for some dogs, depending upon their age and their lifestyle, like the vaccinations for lepto, bordetella, influenza, and Lyme disease. Indy pretty much gets everything because he lives a life of wild and reckless abandon, sniffing strange dog butts and drinking from mountain streams, but not all dogs are Indy, unfortunately. But I do think that some people could reasonably think that there are a lot of vaccines available for dogs, and in their case, they found that most of them are unnecessary. They might have even had their vets say, like, oh, here are the vaccine options. These are all unnecessary for you. I would suggest just get the rabies, you know? And so, yeah, in a survey situation, they might think, yeah, most of them are unnecessary. So yeah, that's the good news. There's a little bit of wiggle room in that slight majority of people who are skeptical of vaccines. It might not be quite as bad as you think at first blush. That's it for the good news. So let's talk about the bad news, which is the 37% who said that they think vaccines are unsafe. When I read the actual study, it turns out it's so much worse than just unsafe. 37% of respondents agreed that some vaccines for dogs can cause them to develop cognitive issues like canine autism. 22% said the risks posed by possible side effects of vaccinating dogs outweigh their benefits. So, yikes. You know, researchers don't even agree on whether a dog can have autism, but no, vaccines cannot give your dog autism. Like, fucking Christ. This honestly makes me feel so bad for people who are on the autism spectrum who already have to deal with anti-vaxxers using autism as the big bad disease that must be avoided at all costs, even if your baby has to die of measles. But to see that at least like 1 out of 5 Americans doesn't even want to vaccinate their dog because it'll give them autism, like, burn it down. Burn it all down. Okay, don't burn it all down. I mean, where would Indy sleep if we did? This is just one survey, and local laws do exist to encourage people to actually get their dogs vaccinated, at least for rabies, which, if you didn't know, has a 100% fatality rate once symptoms appear. Like, you really don't want to get rabies, and you shouldn't want your pets to get it either. So please vaccinate your pets, encourage your friends and family to keep their own pets up to date on their vaccines, and, you know, maybe take some small comfort in knowing that there's some wiggle room in the idea that the majority of Americans are skeptical of vaccinating their pets. You know what? Here's a video of Indy. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you loved the video, please subscribe. And if you think the world could use more videos like this and you happen to have a few bucks laying around, head to patreon.com/Rebecca and join an awesome community of nerds like the people whose names you see on the screen right now. Thanks.